So, as embarrassing as it is to admit this, I didn't know what went into a credit score until the age of 23 when I got my first credit card. My first credit card had a $500 limit. Really was my one chance credit card, and I thank PNC for giving me a chance because I had applied to a few and gotten rejected, and I didn't understand why because I didn't understand credit. And so in this video, I wanted to tell you guys some things that I learned that could possibly ruin your credit score and you might not know it. I thought as long as you didn't have anything in collections, then you would have a good credit score, and that is not the case. Not monitoring it as soon as possible. I knew that credit existed, right, when I was a kid. And I knew that I had a credit score as a kid, but I never made the effort to ask what it was, how to look at it, anything like that. My social security number, I didn't know what it was until I was 18 and I needed it in order to, do job applications and stuff like that and open bank accounts. I didn't know anything about that. You need to monitor your credit at all times. You never know, especially now with how many data leaks there are and password leaks that happen. You want to make sure that your social security number isn't out there. You want to make sure that people aren't opening lines of credit under your name, bills under your name, skimming things and just making payments and not paying them back so that it's sitting on your credit. I didn't know that you needed to do that. And so that already is just starting me off on the wrong foot. What I like to do now is look for scams, make sure that my credit report is locked or frozen. And you can do that through Experian or, just call Experian or FICO or TransUnion and tell them that you want your credit to be frozen. That helps protect it from any debauchery as well. And also look out for credit report discrepancies. As you guys know, it is the law that you can access your credit file once a year. And so just make sure to do that and look for those discrepancies so that you're staying on top of your credit health. Because despite what Dave Ramsey says, credit does matter. It matters for everyone who's not a multimillionaire and who isn't providing jobs for other people. So monitor your credit, be aware of scams. Also, my second mistake that ruined my credit was not establishing it quick enough. I didn't establish credit until I was 23. I thought that because I had student loans, I didn't need to do that. And while the student loans did help establish something, I still wasn't able to get a credit card the times that I tried when I was 18, 19, all the way up until 23. And when I did finally get a credit card, like I said, it was a $500 limit. You're really not doing much with $500. I was just happy to have one, right? So, with that chance, I was able to establish that I could be trusted and eventually up my credit limit to what it is now, which will be a separate video. So, yes, student loans helps to establish credit. Paying any type of bill if you're wanting to establish credit will help you establish it as well. And also, your rental history goes into your credit score as well. And I did not know that. So, just make sure that you are keeping all of those things in mind when it comes to your credit, your rental history, your bills. Make sure everything is going well. Make sure you're not breaking your leases too much. Make sure you're always paying your rent if you can. All of those go into your credit and not just credit cards. And I had no idea. Another thing that kind of ruined my credit was paying only the minimum payments and not necessarily on credit cards because I've always paid off my credit cards, but paying minimums on, say, your rented furniture set or your phone, because sometimes you can rent your phone, or paying the minimums even on your student loans, it's not going to help you. Even now, with how much things are costing and how a lot of people's minimum payments on student loans are pretty freaking high outside of the income driven repayments, if you fall behind on those, it will hurt your credit. And so that was another thing that I didn't realize. I was convinced that, paying a bill and paying your credit card on time was all that was needed in order for your credit score not to go down. And that's just not the case. Now, this fourth one is something that I didn't understand, and I still kind of, I guess I can see why it can ruin your credit now, and that's opening new lines of credit, getting credit checks. Opening new lines of credit, getting credit checks, that makes your credit go down. And I can understand why they would do that, because if you're opening too many new lines at once, or you do it pretty periodically, you're always opening new lines of credit, that could make you look like a risk. I could see that making you look like a risk and not as trustworthy. However, I did not know that growing up or when I was a young adult. I thought, if you had a whole bunch of credit, then you'd have a good score because you have a good mix, you have a good amount of things, and as long as you're paying on everything, it'll be fine. However, I didn't take into account that credit age was a thing, and the older your credit file is, the older your accounts are, the better your credit will be. And so you don't only have to just pay your credit and make sure you're paying it on time, but you want to also keep them open. Don't close any old credit cards. Old accounts, when they close, your credit will go down. So when I paid off my student loans, those accounts closed, and that made my credit like new because those were my oldest accounts open. And so that's just something to keep in mind. And that's also why when you do pay off your car or your student loans, your credit might drop 20 to 40 points. Though it is temporary, it's still startling. Next is maxing out your credit limit. I didn't realize that this was a thing either because I thought as long as you paid it, it didn't matter. But the one time that I did use my whole credit line, which was $500, my credit score dropped 15 points. And I thought maybe it was because I was still new and it was a new card, and that could have been why too. But I now know to keep it at between 10 and 30% usage when it comes to your credit line. And that just helps the credit card company and the credit bureaus know that you're not desperate for money and you're not using the credit in order to survive, but you're leveraging the debt and you're being responsible with that debt. Do I agree with that? No, but that's what I do because I don't want my score to go down. This next one was one that I learned the hard way, and that is defaulting. Defaulting and being sent to collections is the worst thing that could possibly happen. It happened to me with my student loans, and it was no one's fault but my own. And what I learned is that when you do default, you have a certain amount of days. So if it's 30 days, yes, that's bad. But they also have something called 30, 60, 90. And so between the 1 day to 30-day late period, you can still make it so that your stuff isn't sent to collections. And once you pass that, you're kind of in a danger zone. So I don't know what happens once you get to 90 days because my issue happened when I hit the 30-day mark. And that's when my loans were sent to collections and my credit score went down. It went from 704 when I graduated college to 523. And I was devastated. I was devastated, shocked Pikachu face. Like it could have been avoided, like I said, but I was devastated. And so with that came the process of digging myself out. And so I had to talk on the phone with the debt collector. I had to convince him that that it was a mistake. And what he did was consolidated my loan and made it brand new and then reissued it to me through a third party company. Mine was Nelnet. And then once that happened, I had to have that score. Basically, I had to rebuild it, and it took me 3 years to go back up to 700s, and then now eventually 800s. But what happened was that will stay on your report. If you don't do anything about it, it'll stay on your report for 7 years. It makes it hard to get things because it's on your report, and it's really a stain on your reputation, and it's such a shame because it's like a social currency almost, and it's such a shame. So definitely that is the worst case scenario. Please, if you can, avoid defaulting on loans and being sent to collections because it is such a slippery slope and it gets from bad to worse really quickly. And lastly, and this was already touched on a little bit with credit age, but closing old accounts. I can't stress this enough. This is one that I don't think people really know much about, but with credit age, you have to really be careful. And I've learned that it's better to have really old accounts and open new as opposed to having, well paid off and well in good standing new accounts and close an old account. Like I said, my student loan account was from 2017 and it closed in 2023. When that happened, it made my credit report go from 6 and 7 years old to 2 and 3 years old. And so with that came a drop of about 50 points for my credit score. It took me from high 700s to mid 600s. And that's devastating, you guys. Like, I don't think I don't think it's fair. I think, okay, if you have too many new ones, if you open too many new ones or you open credit too fast, okay, you drop your score. But if you close an old account, I don't think that should go against you, especially since, I mean, I don't know the logic behind replacing that practice, but I just don't agree with it. So that's another thing that I learned the hard way. When my student loan accounts closed, I was super excited to pay off those loans, but quickly I learned that I have to now wait a while for my credit to rebound. And now my credit age is still about mid-tier. It's about 5-ish years old, even though I've been, working with things like this since 2017. And so it only goes up from here, I hope. I mean, it's only getting older, but it also comes with the fear of opening new credit cards and stuff like that. And so that's where I am when it comes to my credit and credit journey. And those are the things that can unknowingly harm your score. So please learn from my mistakes not to do those things that I have mentioned in this video below. But I need to know some other things because I'm still not that savvy when it comes to credit. Let me know in the comments below some ways that you could unknowingly hurt your credit score or some things that maybe happened to you in the past that may have harmed your credit score. That's what I want to hear in the comments below, and I will talk to you in the next video.